Hey, Shalom Israel, Yahweh Hashem Yahushua Barakathum, Yahweh Shemalata Bashem Yahushua. This is the I.S.U.P.K, started at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under commanding General YAHANNA. This is the I.S.U.P.K Cincinnati class, also 5,000 Potawatami, Alabama, holding it down for the Wednesday law class. All right. Going to bring out a few scriptures today on what's been going on in the nation regarding the Black community and regarding our children, Black, Hispanic, and Native American. Hey, Shalom. Yabashim Shprakatah, Edomite Slayer. Right. So there's a lot going on in Israel. Every time you look up, Native American women, they being taken off the reservations. Black girls are missing. You know what I mean? Hispanic girls are being raped and molested in these camps and on the borders and all these different places where there's no eyes on them. Right. So Salakia for the late start, but we're going to go ahead and get into it since we don't have that much time. All right. Hey, Edomite Slayer, let me know if you got any questions. I think you had some scriptures that you had sent me. Let me know if you still need those, and we'll break them down real quick before we get into the topic. If not, I'm just going to get right in. So let me know. All right. Well, if you don't have none now, let me know in a second. How can I get the scripture breakdown of the 12 tribes in Genesis 49? So the best, probably the most thorough breakdown, obviously is Captain Katazaz. He did one in Chicago for the fire weekend that just passed here a few months back. He brought out all kind of archaeological and historical evidence, that proved who the 12 tribes were. And like, it's really even if you're an idiot and you don't agree with the school, it's tough to refute what he brought out just because it's so much archaeological and historical evidence that, you got to ask yourself the question, okay, maybe these cats were part of the 12 tribes. But as far as the specific in Genesis 49, you can go to the Cross the Line radio show. They did one. You should be able to pull that one up. Captain Mashak, he did a thorough one on his I.S.U.P.K Trinidad page. And I believe General Hyman, he also did one on the I.S.U.P.K online classes live. So you should be able to find one of those three. They're all thorough breakdowns. That's probably the best place to start. And then obviously, if you can't find it, let me know and I'll help you find it. All right. So let me know if that answers your questions, at least where to go. Okay. So the question is, if the law class, how can I cut them lies about we don't have to keep the laws? All right. So give me one of the scriptures then. Give me one of the scriptures that Israelites. Okay. Give me one of the scriptures before we get into the topic. Give me one or two or a few of the scriptures that they say that that they use to say you're not supposed to keep the law, right? And then we'll break it down. There's plenty of them. There's plenty of scriptures that tell you, that you're supposed to keep the law. Romans 6:14. All right, let's get that. All right, so Romans 6:14 says, For sin shall not have dominion over you, for ye are not under the law, but under grace. This is classic right here. Okay, and is Hebrews 10:8 through 10 a good breakdown of that? Okay, let's go ahead and break this down. And I'm glad you brought out this question. Matter of fact, let me slide it 1 second. Let me get a different Bible. Salaki. I got a bigger print Bible. All right, so let's deal with Romans 6:14 first, because this is a classic scripture that Christians pull and say that you're not supposed to keep the law. So let's just break it all the way down. This is Romans 6:14. For sin shall not have dominion over you, for ye are not under the law, but under grace. So in order to understand this scripture, you got to understand the different parts that make it up. You got to get all the way into the definitions, right? Okay. So we know sin is the transgression of the law, right? So we know that from John, what's that? John 3:4 or John 3:4, I believe. We'll find that later if you don't know the scripture I'm talking about. But it says sin is the transgression of the law, right? So sin shall not have dominion over you, for ye are not under the law. The first thing, okay, before we get under the law, let's get under grace. It says, for you are under grace. Now, what is grace? Edomite Slayer, type in and tell me what is grace. Let me know exactly what grace is, and we're gonna continue to break it down. Something that doesn't mean forever. Let's get the definition in. I'm not gonna make you type it in, but we'll get the definition of grace. Okay. Now there's several definitions in here, and we'll just go through. The first one, it says elegance or beauty of form. Number 2, a pleasing or attractive quality or endowment. 3, favor or goodwill, right? So that's, that's a good portion, a good part of what grace is. Verse 4, a manifestation of favor, especially by superior. It was only through the dean's grace that I wasn't expelled from school. So that, again, that makes up another part of the definition. 5, mercy, clemency, pardon, right? And here's the best one that you'll find in here. And this is just like dictionary.com. All right, so this is number 6, the definition of grace. It says favor shown in granting a delay or temporary immunity. That's the perfect definition of grace, right? And so, like I said, you get the Webster's Bible Dictionary. I just use dictionary.com, and obviously they have several definitions in there of grace. But the one that is most suitable to what the Bible is talking about, it says favor shown in granting a delay or temporary immunity. Now, that's practical because there's things that you do, like when you have your car insurance. Say you have a car, you have car insurance, right? You get into an accident, but you stop paying your car insurance, the day before you got into the accident. Well, most insurance policies have a grace period. So if it'll still cover you like into the next billing cycle, or when you would have got charged the next time. So if you got into an accident within that, even though they're going to reluctantly help you, they are still responsible for insuring that vehicle. That's similar to what you find with the grace of the Most High, right? Like what Christians don't believe. They don't believe, when they think Christ's coming back, they think they believe in the rapture, right? So their whole concept of this grace that they live under is infinite, they're going to have grace, and they're going to be able to sin and do whatever and sleep with, sleep with their neighbor's wife. They're going to be able to steal. They're going to be able to rob. They're going to be able to do drugs. They're going to be able to do all forms of wickedness all the way up until Christ comes back and raptures them up into the sky. That's what Christians believe, right? Now, obviously, if you've been taking classes for more than a week, you know that the rapture is false. Rapture is not in the scriptures as the Christians understand it, right? And the word rapture, when you look it up, means something totally different than you floating up in the sky and being, brought up into heaven. So that's grace. Grace is a period of time for you to get your stuff together. Just like an example of the car insurance. If you don't pay that insurance during the allotted time, that grace period is going to lapse. And if you get into an accident, guess what? You got to pay for all the damages of your car and possibly even the other person's car and damages to whatever else that you cause. So that's what grace is. That's the first thing you got to break down to a Christian, is to let them know your whole concept of grace and you coming back with Christ and floating up into the air and going to heaven. That's false, right? That's how you break down the first part. Christians got to understand. They got to understand that when Christ comes back, he's not coming back to kiss them in the mouth. All right. You said, what if a Christian says, okay, that's until Christ shows up? Right. So, and Christians will say that. They'll say, well, I got grace until Christ shows up and I can continue in sin. Well, the Bible says wages of sin are death, right? So if a Christian is saying that they can sin and live under grace and continue to sin, like, they got to know that Christ is coming back, and we get a few scriptures of what Christ is going to do when he comes back. But basically, he said he's not coming back. He's coming back with a sword. You understand? All right. So let's break it down even further. It says we are not under the law. All right. So the question is, how do you break down Romans 6:14 and let Christians know that this scripture here is not talking about doing away with the law? Now, here's a question, Edomite Slayer, to you. What does it mean to be under the law? Just type that in there and let me know. What does it mean to be under the law? Animal sacrifice. Not exactly. No, that's not under the law. Now, we know that animal sacrifice was done away with, right? And the scripture say Christ, like the Most High, was done with our sacrifices. The only thing that he would take was Christ, because Christ was that unblemished lamb, right? He was that lamb without blemish, that perfect thing that he needed, and the only thing that it was acceptable to the Most High. Like, he wouldn't accept any more animal sacrifices. So when you're under the law, think of the law like this. When you're breaking it down to a Christian, like a Christian, like, think about when the police come, what do you say? Here comes the law, right? They're not physically the law. They're not like the words of the law written says don't steal, but they represent the power and authority of the law, right? That's what a priest was. A priest represented the power and the authority of the law of the Most High, right? So if the Most High said you don't steal, and guess what? Someone was caught stealing, a priest would hear the situation with witnesses and render judgment. At that time, Israel was under the law. If you were caught in adultery, guess what? The man and the woman who were caught in the act were both put to death. During that time, Israel was under the law. Right now, because we don't have the power, or we're not under Yahawashi right now to do the things, we can't do these things in his kingdom. We don't have our own kingdom, right? And we don't have the orders to go and render judgment. What we are now is in captivity. So what we're trying to do is build the nation back up. But there will come a time where we will be under the law, or more appropriately, under the punishments of the law. So when you're breaking it down to a Christian, let them know this scripture isn't saying that the law is done away with. This scripture is simply saying you are not under the punishments of the law. You understand? So to be under the punishment, and I always pull this scripture. I'm gonna see if I can find it real quick, because this scripture right here, this scripture is in Samuel when they asked him, does he come for peace? Let's see if this is go with me to 1 Samuel 16 and 4. 1 Samuel, I'm gonna show you an example of a priest's duty. First Samuel 16 and 4. I believe that's the right scripture. All right, so I'm gonna read this. This is the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 16, verse 4. And Samuel did spake, which the Most High spake, and came to Bethlehem, and the elders of the town trembled at his coming. So here's a man of the Lord, here's a prophet, here's a priest, right? He's coming. The Most High told him to go someplace, and so he did it. He said he came, the scripture say he came to Bethlehem. So imagine a priest walking into Bethlehem, or on his mule, on his horse. He coming into Bethlehem, right? And all the elders of the town trembled. They trembled at his coming. You got to understand this. When they saw this man, they trembled at his coming. And look what they asked him. Comest thou peaceably? Why are they asking him? Is he a soldier? Does he have, does he have a group of assassins with him? They're not asking him that because he's a soldier in the army or he has a band of bandits with him. They're asking him because he is a priest of the Lord. And they knew at that time that they lived under the law. That's why he said, are you coming peaceably? And in verse 5, he says, and he said, peaceably, I am come to sacrifice unto the Most High. Sanctify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice. They know that if he wasn't coming for peace, he was coming to render judgment because they were living under the law. So when Christians read that, when you're talking to a Christian about Romans 6 and 14, you want to make sure that they understand that grace is not something that continues on, right? Grace is by definition, right? By definition, grace is something with a limited time. Grace is not something that you can have forever, right? And here's another scripture. This is how you know. Here's another example that Paul said. We're going to get this real quick. All right, let's get Romans 6 and 1. We go back to Romans, right? We go to where they started at, where your question originally came from. All right, this is Romans 6 and 1. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? Meaning this, because we have a grace period, because we're not living under the law right now, or the punishments, like I said, more appropriately said, the punishments of the law, that grace, shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? And then in verse 2, God forbid, meaning no, we should not do this. We should not continue to live in sin because there's not someone coming to render judgment, right? Your pastor today, he's always coming peaceably, right? Anybody in the Christian church, they're coming peaceably, and they're going to say, you know what? It doesn't matter if you're a crackhead. You just keep on coming and you get off the crack. You know what I'm saying? No worries. You want to be a homosexual in the choir? Go ahead. You can keep being a homosexual. We're going to love and accept you. We're going to love you until you get it right. Listen, that's not what the scriptures say. The scriptures say, what shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. That's what the scriptures say. Also, you got to get it out of Christ's own mouth. Christ out his own mouth. This is always a good scripture to come back and hit Christians over the head with when they say, you know, we're under grace right now. You gotta tell them, hey, go to Matthew 5:17. Matthew 5:17 says, think not that I am come to destroy the law. Christ out his own mouth is saying, I'm not coming to destroy the law. What does it mean to destroy the law? To do away with it. Christ didn't come to do away with the law, right? He said that out. These words isn't read. This is out his own mouth. He says, think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am come not to destroy, but fulfill, right? So Christians, oh, he fulfilled it, right? When they read that part, they say, oh, Christ came and he already fulfilled the law, meaning that you don't have to do it. When it says, I come to fulfill, meaning he showed you how to live. Christ came and showed you how to live by the law, right? Because before, in old times, what would happen? Brothers and sisters would sin, and they would offer up whatever the sin payment was and continue in the life of sin. That's what would happen. But Christ came and showed you that you could live under the law and not have to sin. Like the scriptures say, the laws is not grievous. So that's another scripture that you want to go to. And you want to keep reading too. Verse 18, for verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. So he's saying nothing is going away from the law until all be fulfilled. One jot, one tittle, one dot of the I, one cross of the T. The law is not going in anywhere until heaven and earth pass, right? And we know from the scripture that heaven and earth ain't going nowhere. So Christ is basically saying the law will always be here. Verse 19, here's even another cut that you want to add. You want to add Matthew 5:17 through 19. This is something that Christians, they seem to skip over this and they don't pay attention to it. Verse 19, whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Right? So those are scriptures that you want to add to your precept book to say, okay, the law is not done away with. Definitely you want to start reading up higher in Romans 6, the 6th chapter, right? And there's even more. Let's see, maybe we can find you. Let's get you another one. Let's get another one. All right. There was one more that I wanted to get you, but while I'm looking for it, what was that other one? You said is Hebrews 10:8 through 10, a good breakdown of that. Let's get it. Hebrews 10:8. All right, this is Hebrews chapter 10, verse 8. Above, when he said, sacrifice and offering and burnt offerings and offering for sin offering, thou wouldest not, neither hadst pleasure therein, which are offered by the law. Then said he, lo, I come to do thy will, O God. He taketh away the first, that he may establish the second, by which we are sanctified through the offering of the body of Yahushua Mashiach once for all. So this one is not to the point, right? As far as using this, you have to be a little bit skilled to weave it into it. I mean, you could definitely use it in conjunction with other scriptures, but you know, the Romans 6:1, that's definitely more to the point. The Matthew 5:17 through 19, that's more to the point of Christ not Christ not doing away with the law. The other thing that Christians got to understand. Hold on one second. All right, let's get 1 John 3:4. The other thing that Christians don't even know what sin is. First John. First John 3:4. You want to add this one to your precept book as well, right? This is 1 John 3:4. Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. All right, so then you got to ask a Christian. Next time you a Christian telling you about the law being done away with, Edomite Slayer, ask them what is sin. Right? Here's a simple way to confound Christians. Ask a Christian what is sin. A Christian will say, well, it's when you do something that's against God, and then you take them to the scripture, because that's the answer more than likely that they'll give you. They'll give you some kind of roundabout answer, but you take them directly to what the scriptures say. The scriptures tell you exactly what sin is. You say, okay, let's go to 1 John 3:4, and then you read it. This is 1 John 3:4. Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth the law. So if you sin, you are transgressing or breaking the law. It says, for sin is the transgression of the law, meaning this: without the law, there would be no sin, right? So if the law is done away with, ask them this question: if the law is done away with and you live under grace, how do you know when you sin? And they're going to say, well, it's something that you do against God. And then you take them right back to the scripture. And Christians can't run from this because this is in the New Testament. It's in the New Testament. It's right there in their face. It tells you exactly what sin is. It says sin is the transgression of the law. So again, you bring them back to it. You say, if sin is the transgression of the law, right? You break the law by, you sin by breaking the law. Then you ask them that. You say, okay, if you can't have sin without the law, how are you? Ask them, Salakia, ask them about grace, right? Because they're gonna say we under grace. You say, so how do you sin? And then that's when you're gonna confound them, because you keep taking them back to the scripture. They're not gonna be able to answer that question, because you can't sin without the law. So the whole concept of a Christian being under grace and being able to sin, they're not gonna understand. Let me know if that's clear to you, as far as, you know, that's just a few scriptures how you might be able to attack it and break it down for them. You definitely want to give them the breakdown and the understanding of what grace is. Take them through. You can take them that whole car insurance payment. That's always a good example that they understand. Or even a what's another example? Or damn near any bill you could use. You know, there's a grace period in the bill. And you want to take them to the definition of grace. Then you want to take them to what law is, being under the punishments of the law. You want to take them to the example of where we just went in Samuel, where it says, you know, does thou comest peaceably? Like in the past, a priest was not only somebody who had services in the temple, but they also rendered judgment. A priest would come and cut your head off. A priest would come and initiate stoning you to death. A priest would come and give you whatever punishment that you did, according to whatever law you broke, he would render judgment based, with two witnesses or more. If it was found true, you were either stoned, you were exiled, you were, you had to do a sin offering, whatever it was. That was the role of a prophet and a priest back in the day. And that is going to be the role in the kingdom of heaven. You are going to live under the law. So when you break it down to a Christian, Christians don't understand the Bible because they don't read the Old Testament like they should. They don't know what the role of a prophet was. They don't know what the role of a priest was. A priest, like I said, will come and render judgment. So anytime you tell a Christian to say, well, living under the law means, just like today's time, and bring it in today's time, we live under the law now. If you break the law of the oppressor here, he's going to render judgment on you. He's going to take you to his court system. He's going to unfairly give you a whole bunch of time or a large amount of fees because you are living under the law. Same thing with the Most High's kingdom, like with the Most High's kingdom as it is now. Even in today's time, while we're under this captivity, you understand, we are supposed to keep the law, regardless of if we're living under the law. Like no one is going to come and cut your head off for lying, right? Or cut your hand off for stealing, or whatever the punishment was for the law. Like you don't have a pastor that's going to come knock on your door during the feast of unleavened bread, and if you find leavening in your house, you're going to be killed. No, it's like you keep the law because you want to keep the law. You learning to serve the Most High. But Christians don't understand that. Christians live a very lust-filled life, and they don't respond to any kind of structure. Like the only thing that they respond to is more lust, whether it be money, whether it be women, whatever that lust is, that they respond to that. They don't respond to understanding, oh, the sin is transgression of the law. So I can't, that blows the whole concept away that you got to get rid of the Old Testament. If a Christian ever says in their life that I've sinned, then they are admitting that they need the Old Testament, because without the Old Testament, you don't have the law. And without the law, you cannot have sin. So break that down to a Christian, let them know that they don't know what the hell they're talking about. The whole concept of understanding the Bible comes from the oppressor, and they don't understand anything. Give me another one. If you got another one where they kind of use it and say, this is also says that the law is done away with, right? So if you got another one, let me know. Yeah, I think you were in Hebrew class. If you go to the Hebrew class, or if you go to the website, I was breaking down this in the Hebrew class. Go to the website, and we got those pictures online that you can download. You should be able to download them. These are the 12 tribe signs, and it gives you not only the scriptures that correlate with each tribe, their standard, their stone. You know how Moses had the breastplate, or Aaron had the breastplate with the 12 stones in it. Let's see. Their captivity, their inheritance, and the related scriptures, and even how to say the name or how to write the name in Hebrew. So it's definitely a valuable piece of information. It should be easy to print off. If not, let me know. But like I said, post in there if you think of another scripture where it says, what Christians use to say that the law is done away with. I'm just going to take you to another one that proves that the law is not done away with. But if you find one, what I'm looking for from you, since you brought up the question, was, that was a good one, Romans 6:14, because they definitely used it. But if you think of another one, let me know that we can go to, and we can break that down as well, where Christians use it and say, oh, the law, you don't have to keep the law anymore. So let me know what you find, and then we'll keep going. You said that's all they use for me, Romans 6:14. Okay, no sweat. Well, you got a good, you got a good few scriptures now in your arsenal to break that down and like I said, fully break down what is grace, fully break down what is being under the law. Like I said, better said, being under the punishments of the law. You can give examples in the Old Testament, you know, all that good stuff. And if a Christian, that's the thing, the Christians, they really don't care about being proved wrong. Like a lot of us, the reason why we're in the school, because we were willing to be proved wrong. Everything that we thought we knew, like once we found out something that was like, okay, this school is on to something, we let go of what we thought and we continue. Like you asking questions now, we're continually learning on how to better understand the Bible, how to better serve the Lord. Christians don't give a damn about none of that. You can just give a Christian the same breakdown that I just gave. Like this whole one, like I said, the whole one with the what is the sin, what is sin, the whole one, Christians can never move past that. I've yet to see a Christian be able to move past that. Just ask a Christian, where does your concept of sin come from? What is a sin? And you take them to 1 John 3 and 4. And after they sit there and give you some pie in the sky answer, you're going to keep telling them you cannot have sin without the Old Testament, right? And the law is in the Old Testament, right? So they in a conundrum right there. They can't move past that. You can't say that you sin, but you don't believe in the Old Testament, because the law is in the Old Testament and sin is the transgression of the law. So again, Christians don't give a damn about being proved wrong. All they want to do is argue with you and continue in their lustful life until the Most High open their eyes to where, you know, they get in contact with the right brother at the right time, and they, you know, the Most High decides to wake them up. Right. And here's a scripture that proves to you. Let's get what Christ said out his own mouth. This is the parable. Let's see if I can find the scripture with the parable. What Christ said is not for them, right? Not at this time anyway. Hold on. See if I can find where it's at. Me out too if you know the scripture I'm talking about, eating my slayer. We're gonna get this scripture, and not everybody, like I said, when you talking to Christians, and I'm glad that you brought this question up. You know what I mean? Let's see. This is Matthew chapter 13. Let's see where we're gonna start. Man, it'd be nice to have a reader. Cincinnati, probably, you know, we hitting Cleveland this weekend. We breaking down in Cleveland. But after that, I'm gonna make my way back up to Cincinnati. We're gonna get it in, do a physical class in Cincinnati, because I ain't been there. Matthew 13. Okay, let's go ahead and let's do the whole parable. And this is a good lesson to learn, Edomite Slayer, as you're talking to Christians. And don't get me wrong, it's good. It's good to try to fish brothers. It's good to try to fish sisters. It's good to tell them about the truth. And if you like most brothers, when you come into the school, you super zealous about trying to get your family in, about trying to get all your friends in. You going back to your old neighborhoods. They trying to pass you the blunt. You like, nah, I don't do that. But let me tell you what I'm into now. You trying to do all these wonderful things to serve the Lord, and that's great, and that's righteous, and that's very honorable. But remember these scriptures when I'm about to bring out right now for you. Right. Not everybody's going to get this, and not everybody is meant to get it. And I know that's a tough thing because we grew up Christian. We grew up thinking that everybody can be saved. Right. That's the whole Christian philosophy, from the Ku Klux Klan member down to the pedophile, down to the man at your boss who frames you for stealing, who gets you fired. All these people, everybody, they can come into heaven, and it's going to be a great and wonderful place. And black people just gonna eat crow pie or humble pie and forget about all the horrible things that happened to them during this lifetime, right? That's what Christianity teaches. But let me tell you something. Not only is the Bible not for everybody, salvation is not for everybody. So let's get this parable. This is Matthew chapter 13, verse 1. The same day went Yahushua out of the house and sat by the sea. Verse 2. And great multitudes were gathered together unto him, so that he went into a ship and sat, and the whole multitude stood on the shore. So it looked like to me, you know what I'm saying, Yahushua wanted a little space. He was sitting by the sea. A great many people came. It says a great multitude came. And he said, so that he went into a ship, and the whole multitude stood on the shore. So they basically waiting for him at the shore, right? Get this story, understand this, because this is something that a Christian will read and they will gloss right past this. They'll gloss right past it and they won't understand, because that whole concept is what? Love everybody. Everybody can come together who believes. Everybody is going to get this. This is verse 3. And he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, behold, a sower went forth to sow. Right? Somebody who's planting. Verse 4. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Right? Anybody who's done any kind of husbandry, any kind of, like my grandparents had a little field behind the house before they built apartments way back in the back and took the land. Like they had little gardens. Everybody from the neighborhood had little gardens because it was basically unclaimed land. Right? It was unclaimed land. And so they used that land back there, and they would go and they would, hoe the ground, or they had the little push thing that would kind of till the ground. And then they would come by and they would drop seeds. Now, if you seen it at all, you would know not all those seeds go exactly in the spot where they're supposed to go, unless someone has like a really small garden and they're very meticulous about it. And they put hand pick each seed in there. Most of the time, what you would do, you would take a bag, a light amount in your hand, and you would kind of toss them, sprinkle them. Not all of them would fall into the spot where they were supposed to go, right? So this is what Christ is bringing out. He says, verse 4, and when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Just like in actual, when you're planting stuff, some of those seeds, they don't go where they need to go. They fall by the wayside, and something gets it, either a fowl or, some kind of bug, or, it's dried out and destroyed by the sun. Verse 5, some fell upon stony places where they had not much earth, and forthwith they sprung up because they had no deepness of the root, right? You plant something, it's got to be deep in the soil, deep enough to where it can sprout up, right? Verse 6, and when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. Like I said, something needs roots. You need roots so you can get nourishment, right? And that's what you're establishing now in this truth. You're putting roots, and now that you're getting roots in this truth, you're going to get nourishment from those roots. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them out, right? You get around weeds. You get around people who can choke this truth out of you. You get around naysayers. And I hate even to say the term naysayers because it sounds so Christian, but you get around fake Israelites, you get around people who smoke weed, you get around anybody who's going to deter you from staying on your course, right? The scriptures say narrow is the path, right? Wide is the path to destruction. I'm paraphrasing because I don't know it word for word, but narrow is the place where you need to go to get to this truth, right? It's wide open. If you want to sin, this is the daughter of Babylon. You can do whatever you want to do here. If you want to smoke weed, you can smoke weed. You want to molest kids, you can molest kids. You want to do any kind of abominable thing according to the Most High, you can do it here in the daughter of Babylon. You understand? But it's a narrow path that you got to walk if you want to walk in righteousness. There's some things that you're not just going to be able to do. You're not going to be able to smoke anything. You're not going to be able to be a drunkard. You can have a drink, but guess what? You cannot be a drunkard. You're not going to be able to molest little kids. You're not going to be able to sleep with your neighbor's wife. Like all these things just kind of narrows the path that you're supposed to walk on, right? So let's keep going. Verse 8, but other fell into good ground and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Who have ears to hear, let him hear. And this is verse 10, right? So now that we move past the parable, this takes me back to my point that I was bringing out earlier. Verse 10, and the disciples came and said unto him, why speakest thou unto them in parables? Right? So here's a $1 million question. The disciples is like, Salaki, sir, you blew them away with that parable. They went away, looked like they were confounded, right? And it's the whole point, like that I was trying to bring out to you with Christians. You're going to confound Christians with, like I said, with the one point that I said, what is sin? Just ask a Christian that and take them to 1 John 3 and 4 and try to get them to explain that. You're going to confound them with these things. But people of Christ said, verse 11, he answered and said unto them, because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but unto them it is not given. For whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away, even that he hath. And that's so heavy, because a Christian will never understand what the hell that scripture just meant, right? Or what was the intent on that. These Christians, you spending all this time with Christians trying to get them, to understand that the law is not done away with, right? And they should be keeping the law and all these wonderful things that you learn in the school. And those seeds that you're sowing, those is going into where the sun scorched it, or it fell in the stony places, or it fell amongst thorns, or fell by the wayside. A lot of that stuff that you're doing, not saying that, don't get me wrong, it's always good to let your light shine. That's what the scriptures say. A man doesn't get a candle and put it under a bushel. He puts it high so people can see it, right? You should be showing people that you're different, that you're living different, that you're acting different, that you're learning a bunch of different things, right? In the school, or being righteous and following the Most High, not just learning things, but learning the Bible and following the Most High. You should be doing those things. But if you sitting there trying to battle with Christians all day, some of them just not going to get it. Like Christ said here, I'm going to read it again, verse 11. He answered and said unto them, because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. The truth is not given. The kingdom of heaven, the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven is not given to some of these Christians. Some of these Christians are going to get it. I was a Christian. Some of these Christians are going to get it. They're going to come out of the Christian church. They're going to get in all black. You understand? They're going to get their boots. They're going to grow out braids if they can. And they're going to come and they're going to be troopers, or they're going to be brothers that support the school, and sisters as well. They're going to get, they're going to take, take off the apparel of a whore. They're going to dress in humble attire. They're going to cover their head. They're going to come in here and help braid hair and serve the brothers and be sisterly and help raise the nation and mother kids to some of these priests, right? But some of them will never get this because of what Christ said. He answered and said unto them, because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. So anyway, I hope that answers your question on how to cut that Romans 6 and 14. Also hope that I've given you some insight even to out Christ's own mouth, how he felt about some of these cats. You know what I mean? It's tough. Like I said, when I came in, I was like you, super zealous. Like I even had my parents come to one of my lectures, right? I did a lecture. My parents came, in my opinion anyway, and a lot of the brothers' opinions, it was irrefutable evidence that showed why you shouldn't be a Christian. Guess what they are today? To this day, guess what they are? Christians. So, the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven is not given unto them. Not at this time. Not to say that they couldn't come along. You know what I mean? Israelites tend to wait until stuff is bad. Just like anytime you see, some of these people that are pro-black and kind of they're against police brutality, they don't get that way by looking at other people go through it. Like it has to be close to us. A lot of Israelites, if it's not happening to us, we don't give a damn about it, right? So a lot of times we have to experience what's happening in the world, like personally or close to us, for us to even care about it. What did A$AP Rocky say about Ferguson? Right? If you go and Google what he said about Ferguson, he's like, and I'm not even I'm not saying it verbatim, but essentially he was saying, why are you asking me about that? I don't want to talk about Ferguson. He said, I live in Soho or whatever. He was talking about he lived in New York. He didn't give a damn about what was happening about that. All he wanted to do was make music and get rich and sleep with women and live a good life and not give a damn about the hurt of so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. And that's how a majority of Israel is. It has to happen to us to understand, so we can get some sense of, yeah, he he is an ignorant Negro. But I mean, that's our people. You know what I'm saying? That brother could be woken up just like you could be woken up. Like you got, even I was listening to an interview with Meek Mill, and Meek Mill was like when he was in jail and when he came out, he knew how much basically you know, how oblivious he was to what was going on when it actually affected him. He said, I can't remember exactly what he said, but essentially he was saying, I don't even know if I even cared because it was so far removed from me. But once I went through the system and saw how it was so unfair, like it was his thing now. You know, he was interested, he was involved, he cared about it. So much so that he was going to have a meeting with Donald Trump. But I think it was Jay-Z that kind of talked him out of going to have that conversation with Trump because of how it would have looked. But now he's like he's pro-prison reform, right? He's all about it. And so it's something in us. Like the Lord said, the Bible said, we're a stiff-necked people. We don't learn lessons through someone telling us. We have to learn through experience, which is obviously the incorrect way to learn most things. Like if you're talking about, you know, being a welder, then yes, you know, experience is what you need. You still want somebody telling you and teaching you, but once you actually do it, you get in there, you lighten your torch, whatever welders do, because I ain't never welded. But something that, you know, I do, like programming. Like you see some computer programming, you like, what is this? It looked like it might as well be in Chinese. But once you start doing it, then you get experience. But as far as staying out of trouble, right? We don't understand that. We got to go through it. We got to do it. We got to bump our head. What do the scriptures say in the Old Testament about Adam and Eve? Like they were never supposed to learn good and evil. What does that break down? What does that mean? When Christians read that, they think that they was going to be some, you know, what's that word? Omnipotence being that would know and understand everything. They would never know what it is to be punished for doing bad. That's what they were never supposed to know. They were only supposed to know what was the reward for doing good. If you don't do these things, you're going to stay in the garden. You're going to live forever. You're going to have a rulership and dominion. You got a beautiful land for you and for your family, and this is all y'all's. And you never have to worry about, you know, being kicked out or being hungry or being homeless. This is what belongs to you. But instead, they found out the knowledge of good and evil. What's that knowledge of the evil? The knowledge of evil is understanding what happens to you when you break the law. We were never supposed to understand that. We're never supposed to understand what happens when you are a child molester. The punishments for that. You're never supposed to understand. You're never supposed to get lung cancer from smoking, right? You should know that the Most High says don't smoke, and so you don't smoke, and so you won't get lung cancer. But instead, what happens? What do? We go ahead and we smoke, and eventually we die from some kind of horrible leukemia or some kind of lung disease. Understand? Go ahead. You got another question? I have also other precepts. I want to make sure it's UPK correct because of my IUIC. Because do I keep it or wait till y'all? Give me the scripture and tell me what it's about. Because at this point, you know, I started so late, I ain't gonna really be able to get into a topic. So we'll just go ahead with this whatever precept. So go ahead and punch it in there, and then we'll break it down. I'll give you a second. You just let me know where it's at. I hope you're ready for Cleveland. We're going to get it in Cleveland. We definitely going to get it in this weekend. All right. Ecclesiastes 3:18 says that for Genesis 3:1. You told me before. I just want to know. Ecclesiastes. Let's go to Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes 3:18 says, I said in mine heart concerning the state of the sons of men that God might manifest them and that they might see that they themselves are beasts. Okay, I remember. This is your question about the sons of men. Is that right? Or the beast of the field? I believe your question was the beast of the field. Let me go hold on one second. Yeah, let me know that if it could, if you could. Genesis 3:1 beast. Let's go there. This is Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which the Most High God had made. And so your question is that the same? Yes, the beasts of the field are definitely the other nations. You'll find that all throughout the scriptures. Let me see if I got another precept for you. I'm not sure if I got a bunch on the beast of the field, but that's absolutely the other nations. Well, let's see. Go to Ezekiel 34:8. Ezekiel chapter 34, verse 8. This is Ezekiel chapter 34, verse 8. As I live, said the Most High Power, surely because my flock became a prey, and my flock became meat to every beast of the field, because there was no shepherd, neither did my shepherds search for my flock, but the shepherds fed themselves and fed not the flock. Right. So obviously that's a scripture that can be used, for we call it manifold, or means it has multiple breakdowns, right? So a shepherd protects the flock, right? A shepherd, he would watch for any wolves. What did David do when David was a shepherd? David killed a bear with his bare hands and killed a lion with his bare hands, right? So that's what, as a shepherd, you protect the flock. So Ezekiel is saying, we got shepherds, but they're not protecting my flock. They've been letting every beast of the field. What happens when your Christian leadership, what are they supposed to be doing for Black people? They're supposed to be shepherds over the flock. Like all throughout the scriptures, Israel's referred to sheep, the lost sheep, or we needed a shepherd and we're always lost and need help. That's the whole analogy used all throughout the Bible. So the beast of the field are these other nations. You are a sheep, and without a good shepherd, without someone guiding you and leading you, you're going to be lost and you're going to be devoured by these other nations. What's a perfect example of that today? A perfect example of that today would be Black businesses, right? Black businesses, without the proper leadership in the Black community, we are being gobbled up by the Arabs, by the East Indians, by the Koreans, by the Vietnamese, by the Africans, right? You got all these other nations with businesses in black neighborhoods. And guess what's happening? They're devouring us. They're taking all our resources and not giving any of it back into our community. We are being gobbled up in the beast by the beast of the field. All right. You said what the beast is the other nations in that verse. Right. So let's read it again. This is Ezekiel chapter 34, verse 8. As I live, it said the Most High Power, surely because my flock became a prey, and my flock became meat to every beast of the field, because there was no shepherd. Right? Yes, those are actually the other nations. And in this scripture is more we've become devoured by the other nations by following their philosophy. So that's another way that you can look at these beasts of the fields. Not only do they devour us financially, but they also devour us by getting us to follow these other doctrines, these other philosophies. What happens when Africans come into your neighborhood? Everybody want to be black power. Everybody want to be part of the African community. What about when Arabs get heavy in the community? Everybody want to be a Muslim. Everybody want to turn into an imam. Everybody want to follow the Quran. You know, you even got some of us foolish enough. You get those, those Koreans and Vietnamese, whatever Buddha that they follow, and it's like, oh my goodness, we just follow anything. So we being devoured by everybody, and that's what the scripture means by beast of the field. Let me see if I think I got another one in here. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 40. I think that's the one that I'm thinking of. Isaiah 40. Isaiah 40, and this is not the one that I'm thinking of, but I'm gonna read it anyway. This is Isaiah 40 and 15. Behold, the nations are a drop of a bucket and are counted as the small dust of the balance. Behold, he taketh up the isles as a very little thing, and Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, nor this is a good one. Verse 16. And Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, nor the beast thereof sufficient for a burnt offering. All nations before him are counted as nothing, and they are counted to him less than nothing. So there's a small reference in there as beast. That's not a super concrete one, but it's definitely one that you can use joined with the one that I just gave you in Ezekiel, as the other nations being beasts. There's more precepts about the other nations being beasts for sure. But those two should get you what you need, at least for you said that IUIC member that's always trying. How did that conversation even get started? Like, what was the whole point of him saying? Did he say that the other nations were not beasts? What was his point on bringing that out? If you could type that in. Let me know. He said that they were not. He said the other nations were not beasts. What did he say? Hey, Shalom, Yahbashim Yashabrakatah. What did he say the other nations were? Or how were they referenced in the scriptures? Or did he say that at all? He just said that here's I guess a more succinct question. What is the analogy used in the scriptures when it says the beast of the field? He said they were animal, not men. Okay, no sweat. So I mean, context is everything. He don't obviously had a context, right? But the beast of the field are definitely the other nations. In some contexts, it's actually talking about beasts, but in other contexts, it's talking about the other nations. So, like I said, here's another thing. The word was thrown like the parable we just read in Matthew. A word, or was that John? Salaki. Wherever we just read the parable, I think it was in Matthew. The sower, he sowed on stony ground. Some of that fell by the wayside. Some of it was gobbled up by fowl. Some of it was, you know, choked by thorns. Let that. I know you. That's your cousin. I think you said that's your cousin, and that's the why, you know. But I think what he gonna do is continue to battle with you because you know you still kind of in the learning phase. Like he'll never step up to the plate and actually talk to one of the brothers, you know, in the officer in the school, because that's kind of what they do. He trying to pull you, you know what I'm saying? Don't feel bad because he's trying to pull you over to the gay side and want you to wear the gay purple and, you know, be a part of a murderous group. You know what I'm saying? They didn't do nothing to help that young girl, Joy Morgan. You know what I'm saying? They shoot trainees in the face. They do, you know, all kind of abominable things. You know what I'm saying? They let Hamites into their group, like it wasn't enough. You know, they continue to just be, you know, they locking up black men like it's, you know, like it's the thing to do. So, like I said, if that's your cousin, you know what I mean, y'all chop it up every now and then, that's cool. I wouldn't spend a lot of time with him because all he's gonna do is try to get you to come over to the gay side. And just me, it's too much evidence against them to say that they're a group that you should be a part of. But hey, you know, if you want to have a couple questions, a couple conversations with him, help sharpen your sword. That always helps sharpen your sword, right? He hits you with something, you don't really get the understanding or the full break. You don't have it. You go and come to class, learn it. You know what I'm saying? You can go if you want to go hit him over the head with it. He's not going to accept it anyway. You're going to show him the scriptures that I just showed you, and then he's going to say, "Yeah, no, that's still talking about actual beasts of the field, right?" But it's, you know, like I said, he's in that group for a reason because he's not willing. The sword, it was thrown on stony ground. So he's one of those seeds that fell by the wayside. So like I said, I wouldn't sweat it. Definitely you could use it to help improve your cutting. So you know how to battle all kind of you know, all the sodomites, all the so-called Old Testament Israelites, all the Christians. You definitely want to keep building your arsenal and know how to break it down. But I wouldn't place too much emphasis on what he's saying because he'll, just like a Christian, which he is a Christian, he'll never really fully understand the Bible because he doesn't want to admit that he's wrong. So anyway, Salakia for the late start. I was supposed to start at 7. I got a super late start, but we got some questions answered. Next time, I'm going to be physically in. So we're going to be in Cleveland this weekend. Then physically, we're going to be, I'm going to be in class, Lord willing, in Cincinnati, you know what I mean, next week. Or I might be in Dayton. I ain't been in Dayton in a minute. I know I taught classes up in there in Dayton a few times, so I might hit Dayton, but more than likely I'll be in Cincinnati, the teacher physical class. So, all right, if it's nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and close out. You got anything else, Edomite Slayer, or anybody else online? I said Edomite Slayer because I know you've been engaged in class, but if you got any more questions, hit me real quick. That's it. Most High in Christ. All right. Well, I'm gonna see you this weekend in Cleveland. I appreciate y'all tuning in. With that, with the Israelite School Universal Practical Knowledge coming out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commander YAHANNA. Shalom.